Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson, and this is your wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid Jim Crow current past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage in our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement in your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You were born to lead, even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine. You made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya. Her children always knew she was larger than life. When you are a woman in the movement, you take the children with you on the journey. You bring the babies with you to your college classes. When you travel to Ghana for the first time, it will be with your daughters in tow. When you are a fearless, nationalist thinking mama, mothering never stops with your own babies. 30 godchildren and mentees across the globe. The daughter of a ministering mother is already ordained for good trouble. A seer, a prophetic young student preparing for her lifelong role as servant to her own community. When your purse was snatched in a Farmer Jack parking lot many years ago with your kids' tickets to Run DMC in the purse, you made sure they still got to that concert and even hosted Melly Mel and the Furious Five in your living room, because queens make it look easy. When you were a single mom, people would tell you what you can't do. Instead, you moved to New York City with all 4 of your C's to do your necessary work with the YWCA, because queens make it look easy. Ghana, Togo, South Africa, where is your heart, Mama Watson? Nurturing spirit, baking melt in your mouth, homemade biscuits. How many hours do you sleep, Warrior Watson, with endless work ethic and blue-collar blood racing through your veins? How do we say thank you for your work, your time, your heart? We know you will never really retire. There is a fire on the path to freedom. There is smoke. There is sacrifice. There are stories of justice, of women, of Tubman, Sojourner, of Angela, Asada, Coretta, and Merle, and Betty, and Queen Mother Moore. Some of us know we are ancient, that our marrow is laced with legacy, that we are here to bring light to our daughters. Sometimes it just takes one woman, a mother, a grandmother, a Spitfire, griot, a sister, the only woman to lead the NAACP's largest chapter. She, daughter of the movement, of Rosa, of Irma. She was a birth that gave birth to possibility for other young activists like me, a true D woman, frontline Fatima, Nigerian blood, councilwoman, leader, truth teller, Joanne Watson, social worker, president of the Anti-Klan Network, sister, inspiration, dedicated to the protection of girls and the voices of women wrapped in West African beauty, regal and resilient. Wake up, Detroit. Wake up, South Africa. Wake up, Cuba. Wake up, small business owners. Wake up, White House. Wake up, reparations. Wake up, teachers. Wake up, women. Wake up, schools. Sleeping is not an option when the Honorable Joanne Watson is in the room.
Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. We are so blessed on this wonderful day to come to you with a partnership and a sponsorship of the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics. It's wonderful to have a wonderful national group organizing people to vote, organizing people to support, getting out the vote all over this nation. And the great Derek A. Humphreys, who is an attorney born in Detroit, but has been making his home in Washington, D.C. and yay around the nation, is going to talk to us about the very special panel coming before us today, courtesy of Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Joanne Watson. We thank you so very much. As you know, all roads converge at Wake Up Detroit, the national edition. All roads converge. We are blessed to be received by the creator of Wake Up Detroit. Thank you so very, very much. As I think about your history and the way in which you have helped to shape national policy, in addition to, of course, state policy and county policy and city policy. And I think of the names of all of those who have worked along with you as throughout your journey: Diggs, Conyers, Collins, Crockett, Clark. All of those were served in the United States Congress on behalf of the city of Detroit. And who did they turn to for guidance and for advice and for wisdom? The Honorable Joanne Watson. So we are so pleased to be with you today. And today we have as our guest Congresswoman Robin Kelly, the 2nd District of Illinois, in the Chicago and vicinity, since 2013, married, 2 children, and she will be joining us as the show progresses. Attorney Reuben Shelton III, Grand Polemarch, meaning National President, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, a member of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. He will be joining us as the show progresses. Dr. Dwayne Taylor is with us. He is the president, American Academy of Otolaryngology. I think I got it right a little bit. Medical specialist in treating diseases of the ear, nose, and throat at the base of the skull, head, and neck. And Dr. Taylor is the first African-American physician to serve as president of that distinguished medical association. And Dr. Taylor also is the president of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, otherwise known as the Boule. We also have with us today as our guest, Christian T. Smith. We welcome him. He's a candidate for fire commissioner in Evesham Township in New Jersey. And we have with us the phenomenal Gregory Humphreys, CEO of Humphreys Consultants, Detroit, Michigan. He's one of a select few who is battle tested and conducting campaigns during the pandemic since March 2020 to November 3rd. In essence, boots on the ground. And of course, representing the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics, the Honorable Dorothy Jackson, Executive Director, Policy Council, and Dr. Dennis Rogers, National Field Director.
You can come in. I'm not on camera.
Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Good morning. Good morning. And so that's our lineup today, our guests, as we move forward. I return it to you, my dear. Thank you.
We thank you so much, and I'm so grateful that Dr. Taylor is not making everybody pronounce the field. Otolaryngology. Dr. Taylor, talk to us about the significance of getting out the vote at such a time as this, and why it's important for all professions, all persons who engage in the community at any level, to be involved in this.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's quite a pleasure and an honor to be among this esteemed group, and I commend you for the effort you take on regularly to inform our community. First of all, when you talk about healthcare and you talk about the ability to vote, those are inextricably tied to one another. It's so important, not just in this election, but in any election. All the healthcare issues that affect us, whether it's accessibility, whether it's cost, quality, if we don't get out there and vote as a community, then we can't have an impact. And so it's so important when we talk about things also like the Affordable Care Act and the potential for, for putting that aside, or for decreasing the services that are available to us now or also interfering with our ability to get health care despite our position or socioeconomic status. Those are all critical pieces that if we don't get out there and vote, we can't have an impact. So, and that's with any area. So that's, we're very sensitive to that as physicians, especially as underrepresented minority physicians in the community. And we try to have an impact not only in taking care of people, but also in spreading the word about how important that is for all of us.
Thank you for that. And given the backdrop of this pandemic that has had us in its grips for many, many months now, we know that you as a physician, ear, nose, and throat man, come on, somebody. You have a certain understanding of the challenges that have been upon not just America, but people around the world. Right. And there is a connection between healthcare and addressing pandemics and politics.
That's right. And it's very unfortunate, but this pandemic has become a political issue and one that is to the detriment of those populations like ours who could be most affected by it, especially in terms of not only getting it, but the chances of surviving it. And so it's also had some silver lining effects, I hate to say it, but and it's brought more attention to the disparities of healthcare. Yeah. And because it disproportionately affects our communities, the Latinx and the Asian communities more than the white community, it's brought a light upon an area that we've always known about, the disparities, but it's really, really brought attention in a way where it's critical that we're engaged in the political process to make sure that these wrongs are made right and that all of us have access, and we have access to not only medications, but we have access to the social determinants to being changed in order to make it so that there's some equality and equity.
Dr. Taylor, may I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the person who gives us advice on the national screen, director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, has said that in-person voting is safe if carefully done according to the guidelines published by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. What might those guidelines be? And what advice would you give from a health perspective to those who go to the polls to vote? What safety and health-related advice did you provide them?
Right. So first of all, if you have the opportunity and you have the ability to vote as a absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, then you should take advantage of that opportunity, number one. If you are going to the polls, first of all, you want to make sure that you don't have any symptoms or signs, or that you aren't sick. Any symptoms or signs of the coronavirus. It's critical that when you go, that you try to pre-plan. Planning is really important. Plan to make sure that you have everything you need before you go, any documents, any paperwork. Plan to have hand sanitizer with you. Plan to look at the potential situation and setting of your polling area. If you can vote during off-peak hours, that's ideal. Try to also observe if the lines are long, that you're prepared to be able to manage that. You must have a mask on, okay? You must have your mask on. That is so important. And of course, observing the physical distancing that's important, at least 6 feet from everyone around you. Other things that have been recommended are bringing a black pen with you, as well as a stylus that can be used in the polling booth. any area where there's that's densely populated, whether it's at a polling area or whether you're standing in line, you have that potential if you're not protected and if you're not observing some of these things which I've mentioned of getting the coronavirus. Those who have pre-existing chronic diseases such as heart disease, lung problems, kidney disease, diabetes, you are at more risk. If you're over 60, you're at greater risk. So opportunities to vote ahead of time, to drop off ballots, as well as being just very, very aware and sensitive to the precautions that you need to take ahead of time can help to prevent you from having a problem. But you should be able to exercise your ability to vote if you take note of some of these things that have been mentioned by the CDC.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We've been joined by the magnificent Reuben A. Shelton III, Esquire, Grand Pole Market, Kappa Alpha Psi.
Well, good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And looking like the Grand Pole Mark. My.
I'm just trying to represent.
Looking good, looking good.
Thank you.
Kappas all over the world. Take note, the Grand Pole Mark is here.
All right, all right.
Amen.
Talk about the commitment to getting out the vote in 2020.
Well, I got to tell you that there has been an unprecedented effort amongst the members of the Divine Nine, all of the Black fraternities and sororities. We have gotten together and we have formed several initiatives. We have formed several partnerships with national organizations to get the vote out. Particularly the Black fraternities, we've gotten together for a Black Men Vote initiative, because Black men have been very underrepresented when it comes to voter turnout in past elections, especially in the 2016 election. So we got to get out. I mean, it's incredible that we've got some numbers from the 2016 election in states like Wisconsin, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, where the number of Blacks who did not vote far exceeds the number that decided the presidential election in those states. For instance, in Wisconsin, 23 votes decided the election, but in Milwaukee alone, 93,000 Blacks did not vote. And I could go down the line with the other states that I just mentioned, critical states, and states that are going to be critical in the 2020 election as well. For instance, in Michigan, 11,000 votes decided the election, and in Detroit alone, 277,000 Blacks did not vote. So it's a major push to get our numbers up, but especially Black men. I mean, if you think about it, in 1915, Blacks got the right to vote, and in 1919, the women got the right to vote, but Black women have far come out in greater numbers than Black men. So we got a big push here, and again, we're all working together in collaboration to get this done.
Appreciate that, and certainly you're representing the Divine Nine this morning, and I think there's some other Kappas on the broadcast today. My.
Yeah.
There is one right here. Sigma chapter.
There you go, my good brother. How you doing?
Good. How are you, my brother?
I'm very well, very well. But you know, Kappas are doing a lot as well. We have internal initiatives to get out the vote. Every chapter is charged with contacting. Every member of every chapter is charged with getting at least 10 people. And as Kappas, you know, again, we want to focus on the Black men to get those numbers up. 10 men to register to vote, which we've already done, and to get those 10 out. You know, we have 150,000 initiated brothers out there, and if each member could get at least 10 people, male or female, but our focus is on Black male, black men. If we can get at least 10 to the polls, we could really impact this election in a large way.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a special guest here. We want to bring forth Christian T. Smith, who is a candidate for fire commissioner in New Jersey. Good morning, Brother Christian.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for having me on today. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone. Yes, I am running for a candidate for fire commissioner in Evesham Township, New Jersey. I got involved in the election, the candidacy, pretty much because I wanted to get involved in the community that I live in. There was not a lot of representation of young people, especially young people of African American descent, anywhere within the political scheme in town, council, any of the zoning boards, or any of the boards that are in town. We had a mayor that actually was in power for a long time, 2007 to 2018. The last election, we voted in 3 Democratic councilwomen who are now controlling the board, have the majority on the board. Mayor Heather Cooper and Pat Hansen are now on the board. And they started to get a lot of people involved who had a talent voice in town. And they reached out to me about getting involved in council initially.
That's up.
And we had some options. And I got more involved in the fire commissioner because I actually started kind of the town watch. And I wanted to get more involved in the aspects of the community that provided safety, like town watch, with community policing and community events, and also the fire commissions as well. So that's why I got involved in that aspect. But the mayor and I have talked, we're trying to reach out to a lot of people just in general in town who are young, black and white, who felt they have a voice in the town for a long time, but also to a lot of the minorities in town as well.
Well, you're living proof that all politics is really local.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
ma'am.
That's right. Think globally, act locally, and your engagement on the ground at the local level and in your township is significant. You're a young man. You're cutting your teeth on civic engagement and political activism, and I know you know the value of getting out the vote, particularly for this year.
Yes, ma'am. When I was 18 years old, I talked to my friends all the time, and I encouraged them to get out the vote, register. And as we got older and they registered, it was more, okay, you just can't vote in every 4 years. You have to vote every election, and especially the ones in the communities that you live in, where we are appointing council members and prosecutors in your town, and that's very important.
That's right. We certainly know that there is a need to focus all the way down the ballot. You should not just vote the top of the ticket, the entire ballot.
Yes.
And might you share with us a little bit, Brother Smith, what is it that you're doing to help voters know that they need to vote the entire ballot? Because typically in a presidential year, many people will just simply stop at voting for the president or voting for a congressman or senator. But what is it? What are the techniques that you're using to help them to understand, as the Honorable Joanne Watson said, to vote down ballot?
Well, I think the unfortunate incidents with Mr. Floyd woke up a few people in my community as well. And I started working with the mayor to get these young voters out. And when they see that the prosecutors are not bringing these charges immediately, when they see that they're not bringing charges at all, or they're bringing minor charges to some of the officers who committed these atrocities, I think that opened up a lot of eyes with people. So I try to explain to them that this is where I say you have to get involved locally. And because, yes, the president is important, but we have these prosecutors and people in our towns who, like I said, my mayor sat on town for 10 years, who are sitting in these seats for a long time, either running with no competition at all, unopposed. And if you want to start a change, it starts at this level, because you're seeing what has to happen nationally, and you don't want it to happen here. And this is how you start to prevent those things from happening, and keeping our law enforcement and our people accountable. If we're not voting on that level, then we're not holding them accountable.
That's exactly right. And we certainly remember the epicenter of the incident surrounding Ferguson, Missouri, were not only addressed in the tragic murder, but in the fact that there was no representation. Ferguson, Missouri, high level of Black residents, low level of engagement and participation in leadership. That just does not compute, and it's not acceptable in times such as these. So we're so grateful that you are offering yourself for leadership during this time.
Yeah.
My young, gifted, and Black just getting better.
Thank you.
Dr. Dennis Rogers, I know
Yes,
you're going to be watching the debate tonight with great interest.
Both the debate and this idea that people are voting early. You know, right now, according to an article that came out in the Washington Post, there have been 421 million early votes cast already. And in those battleground states, there have been 21.2 million early votes cast already, including in Michigan, 1.6 million early voters.
Yeah.
So Wake Up Detroit is having an impact.
That's right.
In the state of North Carolina, there have been 2.2 million early voters. In Ohio, 1.4 million. Pennsylvania, 1.2 million. And I was actually at the polls yesterday, and I made a couple of observations. There were the voter intimidation watch groups on site yesterday, actually walking the grounds to make sure that voter intimidation was not occurring at that particular poll site. And I was informed that they're dispersed throughout the state. So they're even in places like Forsyth County and Guilford County, which is adjacent to North Carolina A&T State University, where people have in the past shown up with guns and actually attempted to intimidate people. There was no intimidation yesterday at that site, but there was curbside voting. So there were voters who were physically challenged, and there were people bringing ballots out of the voting station, the polling station, to their cars where they could actually cast their ballot, and then they would go in and put them in the machine. There was a steady flow of voters. I actually voted yesterday. There were two machines, and at the particular polling station, when I cast my ballot, it was really around 3,600 early votes already cast on that one particular machine. And as our doctor recommended to us, they actually were COVID safe yesterday. Everyone got their own pin. They were wearing masks. There was social distancing in between voters. And after each person voted, someone actually came in and swabbed down the old school voting booths, which are almost like portable. And, you know, people come in with their ballot and actually fill them out and take the ballot with them. But they were wiping down the booth to make sure that there was no, COVID being spread in that space as much as possible.
Excellent.
Now that you mentioned curbside voting.
Yes.
Right, Dr. Rogers?
Yes.
The Supreme Court decided last night that Alabama state officials can prohibit counties from offering curbside voting to people with disabilities and others worried about the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, late last night.
That is not a good thing, because there were people who were, as you know, in our community, aged, who were walking in with their canes, and they were being supported by other family members. But there were numbers of cars where people were voting early. So even as we're engaged in voting, they're moving the goalpost. And so we have to be vigilant, as we talked about in last week's call, about getting to the polls now and staying focused on making sure that everyone gets their vote cast.
And,
Well said.
and Pomark Shelton,
Yes, sir.
now you're a lawyer and a distinguished lawyer. What do you think about that decision that the Supreme Court made last night?
Well, I think it's troubling, but it all goes back to this thing about the states' rights issue that the Republicans they tout all the time. Now, states can allow curbside voting, as I understand the decision, but they can also prohibit it, as Alabama did as well. In a democracy and in a republic, you ought to make voting as easy as possible for your citizens, because voting is the backbone of our democracy, the right to vote. And anytime you try to limit it to your citizens, you do a great disservice to our country. I don't know why you would want to make it more difficult for people who are having issues, whether it's COVID-19 or just other medical kind of issues. Why you would make it more difficult for them to vote? I just don't get it.
You just made a very, very significant observation, and that is that the states can do it. They're not ordered to do it, but they can do it.
Yes.
I wonder if the lawyers on the case are preparing a one-pager, you know what I mean? To go out to all of the organizations indicating that this is what the decision means. It's not that the decision prohibits it. It just simply states that the state can make that type of decision.
Oh, I can absolutely guarantee that the lawyers are making that distinction all over the country.
Okay.
Alabama is, I love the state of Alabama, but that's just the wrong decision that they're making to restrict voting for people who absolutely need curbside voting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that Congresswoman Robin L. Kelly, who has joined us, has something to say about that. We're so grateful to have been joined by Congresswoman Robin L. Kelly, 2nd District of Illinois.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for adding star power to Wake Up Detroit, the National Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics. A member of the Congressional Black Caucus is here, present and accounted for. And I know you have something to say about the importance of getting out the vote.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, we're telling people you better exercise your right to vote. Your life depends on it. And your vote is your voice. And we have to show America that we especially have a voice. And we're going to do something about what's been going on, particularly these last 4 years. But even beyond that, there's a lot of disparities that we have to deal with. We knew about them, but COVID has certainly put a light on them. The murder of George Floyd and others has certainly put a light on them. So we have a lot of work to do.
We do have a lot of work to do. And certainly this is the time of year when members of the Congressional Black Caucus crisscross the country, getting that message out to our people everywhere we are. Somebody ought to be really petition to get out the vote.
Right. Well, we have done a lot even beforehand because we've worked so hard on the census also. So we talked census and we spoke about how important it is to vote. And of course, because of COVID, we're Zooming a little bit more than jumping on a plane. But I was just in Wisconsin. I'm right below Wisconsin. So I was just there in Milwaukee on Sunday, urging people to vote, thanking volunteers. By the long lines that I see at the voting places, I think people get the message how important it is. And when you see people waiting 6 hours, 11 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous and a sign of voter suppression, that people have to wait that long because there's not as many places to vote at. But I think people are getting the message. God, I hope so.
We do too. And our attorney, Dorothy Jackson, who works all over the place in multiple groups, and is the executive producer for these programs, I'd like her to comment on the significance of us using all of our arenas to get people engaged?
I think it's very important that we use all of our arenas. I think there are some athletes such as LeBron James who started these programs, and they're beginning to use sports arenas to provide more space for women. But before that, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to welcome my sister, Congresswoman Robin Kelly. And as you can see, Congresswoman Kelly, the Grand Pole Mark of Kappa Alpha Psi is on today, dressed in his colors. So I'd just like to let everyone know that you are a proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho.
I have my blue and gold background, but I love my red.
Right. Taking care of our divine nine responsibilities. Congressman Kelly, because you have recently, I'm not sure if you introduced the bill yet, but I read that you are doing work on the telehealth digital divide. And we have another doctor on, Dr. Dwayne Taylor. So now, because of COVID, a lot of people are having virtual medical appointments. But if you're in an underserved community, you may not even have a laptop so your children can do their schoolwork from home. So how does that digital divide work when you're trying to do virtual medical appointments, which could actually have a real great impact on the health of people and their ability to get out to vote?
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, you. Because
I'm sorry. Yes, I was the ranking member when we were in the minority on the IT oversight committee. And between that and my district being urban, suburban, and rural, I know that many people don't have the broadband capabilities. In fact, in my rural part of my district, I was told that 40% of the people could not get online to fill out the census. So we know that we need to do more in the infrastructure world around broadband. And also we know that more telehealth has been used than ever before. And I know it up close and personal because my husband's a doctor and he's in one room doing his thing and I'm in my room doing my congressional work. And we've spoken to doctors all over the United States. I'm the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust. And they say how they notice that more people are actually keeping their appointments, but they may not be able to do it through Zoom. They have to do it over the phone. And like my husband says that some people, they don't have the equipment to even do it through Zoom, so he makes phone calls. But we have to get more people connected so this can be used.
Thank you.
So, and this is Derek Humphreys, also the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics. You've mentioned your chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust. You're also co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls. And I'm wondering, what in your opinion and research is the biggest challenge presented by the pandemic and the November 3rd elections?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think it's just people's fears too, because when they think about COVID and think about, being around people, but really healthcare and the economy are the two biggest issues. And a lot of us had issues anyway. Black women don't get paid as much. And the more educated you are, the bigger the pay gap. So I think those two things are leading the day, COVID and then healthcare mixed in with that. And then the economy, people are, very worried. The phone calls we get in the office, people are afraid of, not being able to pay their bills. They're afraid of access. We talk about the social determinants of health, but I like to say the social determinants of life, education level, jobs, housing, people live in food deserts, the criminal justice system. So many things impact how we live our life. And in Chicago, there's a 7-mile distance that if you live on one end, the south end, you live 30 years less than the people 7 miles away on the north end. I mean, that's utterly ridiculous.
It is such a discrepancy.
And that,
the disparities, you know, scream at you.
Wow.
and that's exactly why we vote. That's why we vote. That's why we're working so hard to get out the vote. Because we should not settle for disparities like that.
I totally agree,
to
and that's what
invite-
we're working hard.
And, you know,
Excellent.
and so I'm just thinking again, you announced last month that you're running for a Democratic leadership position in the House of Representatives. I think to be vice chair
Right.
of the Democratic caucus, right, which is the sixth highest ranking position.
Right, running. Threw
Right.
my hat into the ring to run for vice chair. And even though I know part of the duties will be to assist someone I'm very proud of, and I know someone else is very proud of, Mr. Kappa Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh, yes, yes,
He's doing a wonderful job. But also, it's about member services. So I want to make sure members have all the tools they need to be successful, whether you're, you know, red to blue, a frontline member, or a member that people consider safe. Even I hate that word because the seat may be safely Democrat, but it may not be yours. You know, to make sure members have all the tools, to make sure we get to know each other. We really are going to have to be united over these next 2 years. So what happened to President Obama when he lost so many Democrats lost, you know, and then he had to fight such an uphill battle to get anything passed. We have to make sure that we keep the Democrats, you know, that are elected. That's very important. But also I want to make sure that we address these disparities. I want to be a strong voice at the leadership table to talk about these disparities and the things we have to do. The other thing is, I say it's time we have some Midwesterners at the leadership table. It's very coastal. And the other thing is, believe it or not, we have not had a Black woman elected to the longstanding leadership positions. You're not going to believe this, since Shirley Chisholm.
Wow.
Shirley Chisholm was in the role I'm going for, but it was called secretary. We have, even though we're the backbone, we're the saviors, we're the dependable ones, that's what everyone says, but we have not been able to get elected in the Democratic caucus for one of the longstanding leadership positions. So hopefully I'm going to break that ceiling. It's going to be a, you know, uphill battle, but hopefully I'll make it through.
Good.
Well, we certainly wish you well in that process.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. It was great to be with you. Please invite me back. Dorothy, great to see you. And Ruben, great to see you. Take care.
Good to see you as well. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Want to invite Gregory Humphreys to talk about why we should not let up, even though we only have a few days before the election. There is still important work to do. Greg Humphreys? All right. I'm going to pitch that to Derek Humphreys.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about is the health aspect of what we are facing, particularly with regard to an area which is overlooked, and that is poll workers. And those who come to the different polls to work, to make certain that people are doing the right thing, make certain that the laws are being obeyed. And what we often do not understand is that they are the ones who really make things go. And how important are they? When Milwaukee held its election, I think it was a preliminary election a couple of months ago, because there weren't enough poll workers, the state legislature made a decision to reduce the number of voting sites in Milwaukee because there weren't enough poll workers. And I know that there's a health aspect to that, because the statistics indicate that somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of poll workers are at least 61 years of age and older. And that there has been a reaction to the fact that this pandemic exists, that people don't want to place themselves in the path of harm. And I'd like to just get a thought from Dr. Taylor on that. Dr. Taylor, how can we address that issue? Because poll workers are critical.
That's that's a very good question. One of the things that's really important is that we are encouraging in our younger members of our society to be involved in poll working. Okay, because not only is it important that we're encouraging them to vote and to be registered, but be a part of this process as poll workers. There are a number of things that are being looked at and recommended as far as the poll workers, so that they're able to keep themselves safe. And some of them were alluded to, making sure that they're wiping off surfaces with disinfectants, making sure that they are obviously managing the lines, managing the crowds of people so that they're socially distanced like they should be, and just really observing and enforcing the sort of respiratory and hand hygiene etiquette that's necessary in these settings. They also have the responsibilities of making sure that the signage is like it should be, and making sure that those polling places, they're locations that have adequate ventilation like they should in those areas, so that everyone can be healthy in that setting. But they are particularly more at risk. And so I know there are a variety of groups out there right now that are not only looking at helping to assist with voter protection, but also making sure that there are adequate numbers of those working in the polling areas. And again, one of the organizations that I'm a part of, which is Sigma Pi Phi, the Boule, we have an initiative locally in Epsilon and Washington, D.C., where we are connecting with young voters and potential voters from around the country to encourage them to be engaged in the process of not only voting, but also being a part of the polling locations and working at the polls. There is a big concern, though, that we won't have or don't have enough, because we're so used to those, as you mentioned, over 60 that have been a real integral part of the process in the past. So that's one of the things that initiatives that's going on. And we also have a relationship with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law to assist with voter protection on the hotlines, as well as in the polling areas, to make sure that everyone knows that they're current with the legal protections that they have and are not intimidated by the things that might be present. But health it's a big part of this right now with the global pandemic going on, and we certainly don't want we don't want people to not be out there voting in order to make sure that policy and legislation happens. And again, as was mentioned, the down ballot at all levels to protect our health in the future.
You've raised an excellent point, and I say to everyone, on the call, and I see that David Hardwick had joined us.
Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
How's everybody this morning? Good to see you, Grandpa Mark Ruben Shelton on the call.
Another good Kappa man on the call.
There we are. All three of us. There we are.
And it was also fantastic to see Congresswoman Robin Kelly,
yes,
who's a former board member of Unity 9 PAC, on the call this morning. I wish I could have gave her a shout out before she left, but I'm glad to see that she's still engaged. Wonderful woman, wonderful Congresswoman.
And so I ask, and I know that we're getting close to the end. You and others, has anyone been aware and in touch with the initiative led by LeBron James and a multi-million-dollar push for more poll workers? Is anybody aware of that initiative? Anybody on the call? Anybody?
Yes, I am aware of that initiative. Kappa has not partnered with LeBron James. I mean, he's got a lot of people helping him with that effort.
Right.
I mean, we need all hands on deck. You know, we
Yes.
need help from wherever
we can get it.
Wherever we can get it.
Yes.
And my fellow Archon, Dr. Taylor, we too are working with Sigma Pi Phi on a couple of initiatives, as well as the National Bar Association on their election protection initiative to help watch the polls, get poll workers, and to have, it's kind of a four-tiered approach where we'll have lawyers standing by to go to the court if we have to, lawyers standing by to intervene actually at the polls, recruiting poll workers. So, I mean, we need everybody in the room, and we need it, and we're going to get it. I think we're going to get there.
And at every one of these touch points, an interesting point you're making is that we're actually going through political socialization. So we're socializing ourselves and a new generation of the various touch points involved in the electoral process. All of the hands needed
Yes.
in all of the spaces on deck. We're educating a new generation, replenishing the ranks, if you will, so that we will have more in the future of the people who have the skill set to engage in the levels that we need them to engage in the future.
Great points. Great points.
I'd love to have the great attorney Dorothy Jackson comment on the importance of people anointing themselves and appointing themselves to be get out the vote centers. Everybody has a list of contacts in their cell phones. You have a list of cousins you don't regularly engage with. Come on, somebody. You have neighbors you may not talk to all the time, but now is the time to reach out and to sometimes you may be just a reminder they need to participate in this electoral process.
I think this goes along with what Dennis just said about touch points. And there's a song we all know, like reach out and touch somebody. So I think that it's important for people not to wait to say, oh, I'm waiting for this organization because they usually come and they organize this or they organize transportation. But it's the same thing as when you see something, say something.
That's right.
So when you see there's a need, you just have to step into it. And so if somebody later comes back and says, well, you know, we do that every year. What are you doing getting involved in that? Well, I was involved because at that particular point, nobody else was.
That's right.
So it's important that you anoint yourself for the work that needs to be done and not wait for somebody else to come along and say, oh, you want to help me do this? If you see somebody needs help, help. You know, that's the bottom line. That's what we all have to do every day in our lives. And this pandemic is causing a lot of depression. People to be depressed about things that they need and can't get. And just like the telehealth with Congresswoman Kelly, there are people who need medication, they can't get it. People who need all kinds of medical things that they cannot get. So sometimes as a neighbor or a friend, you have to anoint yourself as a paralegal.
That's right.
As a physician's assistant. You have to just make people feel that you care about them and you want to help them do whatever they have to do and keep them uplifted so they know that they are important, their vote is important, and that is their right. And we have to help make sure that people can accomplish these things. Because when the polls close on the West Coast on November 3rd, we all want to be anointed and appointed and know that we have done every single thing in our power to impact this election in a positive way.
Yes, absolutely.
And say, Dorothy,
we don't want to be.
I would say one thing that this election has, during this pandemic, has taught us is one thing: we just can't stop preparing for an election every 4 years. We have to have the infrastructure in place to make sure that we are united going forward. We can't look at 3 months before an election to see if we need to start a pact within our organizations.
That's right.
We need to make sure that we have those organizations, those vehicles in place, ready to do, regardless of who's running for office. It's not just a phenomenal that we have a member of the Divine Nine running this year, so we all want to unite around her.
Right.
We have to unite around the process of voting, process of getting out the vote, the financial support to get the boots on the ground, the financial support to support our Congressional Black Caucus members, financial support to support those local races where we have members of our community that need our help. That's what Unity 9 was prepared for, and we need to continue to look at that model going forward and not try to reinvent the wheel every time there's a candidate that we may like or we dislike, so we start our own organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
It is.
I certainly want to thank everybody who's been a great panelist today during this outstanding national edition of Wake Up Detroit. And I'm going to ask our sponsor, the great attorney Derek A. Humphreys, counsel to the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics, our sponsor and our partner for many weeks now, all the way up to Election Day, to give us our closing statement.
Well, thank you very much, the Honorable Joanne Watson. As I indicated at the very beginning, all roads converge at Wake Up Detroit. And that's the national edition. And as I look and I see the connections which are made here, my Kappa brothers, my Boulay brothers, it's so we know that we're there, we're out there, we're pulling together, we're working as a team. And that is that teamwork makes the dream work. And so as we talk about from the Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics, the concept of moving from protests to power at the polls. And as John Lewis is quoted as saying, Archon John Lewis, the vote is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have. Thank you very much, Joanne. This has been remarkable, a remarkable conversation leading to more action plans and implementation.
Thank you, and we are part of a movement. The great Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian always said, it's not a movement unless the people are moving. So let's move.
Yes.
Right.
We want to all move in the same direction, getting out the vote. Thank you so much, all of you, for being very special guests on Wake Up Detroit, the national edition, sponsored by Black Congress on Health, Law, and Economics. Have a magnificent day and wake up, America.
Okay. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wake Up Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson, and this is a wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid Jim Crow current past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage and our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement in your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You were born to lead, even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine. You made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya. Her children always knew she was larger than life. When you are a woman in the movement, you take the children with you on the journey. You bring the babies with you to your college classes. When you travel to Ghana for the first time, it will be with your daughters in tow. When you are a fearless, nationalist thinking mama, mothering never stops with your own babies. 30 godchildren and mentees across the globe. The daughter of a ministering mother is already ordained for good trouble, a seer.